Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuktapadakamam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahajanana Gunatam Gitam Tam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahajanana Shri Vishakam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Gauravani Prachane Nirvishesha Sunyadi Paschatya Vishtacharine Chatalbhaktu Yasha Kripamaya Sriyasha Patitam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Sakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Rishabhanu Sute Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki. Good morning. It's not a very good morning, is it? too much rain. Yeah. I guess it must be Denmark.
Yeah, it was quite a cool summer.
So we're reading from, despite the rain, we're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapter 18, verse number 75. The chapter is called Diti Vows to Kill King Indra. Okay, shall we chant this together? If we did this in the classical tradition, we would not be reading it, we would only be hearing and repeating. But we've become a visual culture. What do you ārādhyātma-pradaṁ devam. ārādhyātma-pradaṁ devam.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
svātmānaṁ jagat-īśvaram.
svātmānaṁ jagat-īśvaram.
svātmānaṁ jagat-īśvaram.
svātmānaṁ jagat-īśvaram.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśaṁ.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśaṁ.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
budhaḥ syān narake piyat.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
budhaḥ syān narake piyat.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
ārādhyātma-pradaṁ devam.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
svātmānaṁ jagat-īśvaram.
svātmānaṁ jagat-īśvaram.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśaṁ.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
budhaḥ syān narake piyat.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
Ladies?
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
budhaḥ narake piyat.
ārādhyātma-pradam devam.
svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram. Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam. budhaḥ narake piyat. ārādhyātma-pradam devam. svā-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram. Ko vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśam. budhaḥ narake piyat.
Okay, what does all this mean? Oh, before that, one little tip about Sanskrit pronunciation. There is, you probably know already, but there is a difference between short vowels and long vowels. And they can make quite a difference in meaning. And therefore, when one learn Sanskrit, they put a lot of emphasis on making the difference between the two. Yeah, so it's ārādhyātma. It's not ārādhyātma. Because if it were ārādhya, it would perhaps mean something like not having worshipped. Okay, ārādhya. After worshipping. ātma-pradam. Who gives himself. Devam. The Lord. Sva-ātmānam. The most dear. Jagat-īśvaram. The Lord of the universe. What? vṛṇīta. Would choose. Guṇa-sparśaṁ. Material happiness. Actually, the word sparsha, you know this word. What is sparsha? Touch. Yes, touch. So literally, what would this be? Guṇa-sparśam.
Touch of the gunas.
Yeah, or touching the gunas, something like that. Depends how you take the samasa. Buddha. Intelligent person. Syāt. Is. Actually, syāt is what's called subjunctive form. So it means will be or may be. It's more like maybe. So can be. Narake. In hell. Api. Even. Yet. Which. So now we know what it means, right? Okay, let's get the translation. And purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: the ultimate goal of all ambitions. Who's speaking here, by the way? Do we know? Indra, yes. Who's he speaking to? Diti, yes. The ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord, who gives himself to his devotees, how can he desire material happiness, which is available even in hell? Happiness available in hell? Interesting. Shall we repeat the verse together? Do you usually do this? Okay, we'll keep the tradition. The ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord, who gives himself to his devotees, how can he desire material happiness? Which is available even in hell. Okay, now this, there are two sentences, and the second one is a question. What sort of question is it? You know, there's a special word for this. It's called a rhetorical question. You know what a rhetorical question is?
The answer is already in the question.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The answer is already in the question. It's not exactly asking for an answer. It's It's usually a kind of challenge. Okay, purport. An intelligent man, or we might add nowadays, man or woman, will never aspire to become a devotee to achieve material happiness. That is the test of a devotee. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitam, Va Jagad-īśvaram, Mama Janmani, Janmanishvare, Bhagavat Bhakti Rahaitu Tvayi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. A pure devotee never begs the Lord for material happiness in the shape of riches, followers, a good wife, or even mukti. The Lord promises, however, yoga-kshemam-vaham-yaham, I voluntarily bring everything necessary for my service. Interesting translation of that phrase. I voluntarily bring everything necessary for my service. Okay. Right. Ārādhyātma-pradaṁ devam, svātmānam, jagad-īśvaram, vṛṇīta, guṇa-sparśaṁ, budhaḥ, syān, narake, yat. The ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord, who gives himself to his devotees, how can he desire material happiness which is available even in hell? It's interesting that Lord Indra is saying this, because in the Bhagavatam, how is Indra usually presented?
Quite interesting.
Yes, Mata.
As the incarnation of lust in the lowest. I mean, he many times gets himself in trouble.
Yeah, he's kind of portrayed as rather foolish, isn't it? And rather preoccupied with material things. After all, he's King of Heaven, he's sometimes referred to, and he seems to take his position very seriously. In the Rig Veda, there are prayers, there are hymns to Lord Indra, which are very much praising Indra. He is he's like one of the main heroes. He's like a hero. And one of the heroic things that he does is to kill Vritra. This is described in the Rig Veda. Vritrasura, is some sort of, he's a kind of monster. We might describe him as a kind of dragon. In China, they talk of dragons. Dragons are sort of giant, snake, lizard type beasts. So, and what Vritra does is to hold back all the waters of creation. He kind of restrains the flow of water. We know how essential water is for life. Vritra takes it in his mind, gets the idea, I will trouble all living entities, and so he holds back all the waters. So everyone starts choking, and dying of thirst, and everything's drying up. It's becoming a terrible situation. So Indra comes and he kills Vritra, and everyone cheers. Yay! All glories to Lord Indra. But in the Bhagavatam, we get sort of more like the inside story. We get this a lot. we also get kind of inside story of things that go on in the Mahabharata. And what's the inside story about Vritra and Indra?
That Vritrasura, he was Chitraketu,
Yeah.
and he was a
Right.
devotee, and he got cursed by Mother Parvati.
Yeah, he got cursed by Mother Parvati for doing what?
Offending her husband.
Okay.
And her also.
But what specifically did he do?
He just laughed.
He just laughed. He saw something that he thought was very funny, and she didn't think was funny at all. Yeah, she took offense. And so Chitraketu, who was, he already had darshan of the Lord. In what form? Oscar. Sankarshan, yeah. So he's already had direct darshan of the Lord. There's no question of him being an exalted devotee of the Lord. But through no particular fault on his part, I would say, if we saw the situation that he saw, we might also be inclined to laugh. What was humorous was that Shiva and Parvati were together in some sort of intimacy. It's not exactly clear, what it is, but in any case, it seems Parvati was on Lord Shiva's lap, and that's when you're in private. Householders in private might do that, but they weren't in private. They were surrounded by sages. So that's very humorous. That's like, huh? So I can imagine Chitraketu going, huh? What's this? And then laughing. So really, through no real fault of his own, he was cursed. And of course, all of this was the bigger arrangements so that Indra can learn a lesson, because as Vritra, Chitraketu has some memory. He wants to get back to his situation as a devotee, and so he's really looking forward to being killed. And whereas Indra is kind of hesitating. Indra is in this in the Bhagavatam description, he's feeling I don't know, seems like kind of mixed feelings. He knows he has to kill the demon, but it's so difficult, and he needs to be pushed, encouraged by Vritra. Go ahead, kill me, you can do it. And so we understand, in this situation, Vritra is actually in the superior position. He is in the position of readiness to give up his life in order to, again, fully take shelter in the Lord. Yeah, so Indra is usually in a somewhat embarrassing condition in the Bhagavatam. Some other examples we might think of where Indra is presented in the Bhagavatam. Yes.
He also didn't respect the hospitality, and his spiritual master, he was a little absorbed in his own glory.
Yeah, he was a bit caught up in watching the dancing girls, or whatever it was. So when his Guru Maharaj came in, he ignored it. Imagine that. Your own Guru Maharaj would come in the room and you would just ignore him. That might not be a good idea. So, yeah. What else? What's the other? peace of Indra.
He was disturbed when Krishna took the offering that was made for him.
Yeah, he was immediately offended after Indra persuaded his daddy. He said, "Daddy, what are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're making Indra Yagya." "What for?" "Well, we always do it." "Yeah, so?" And then he gives these arguments which look something like karma mimamsa philosophy. That what really matters is just that we do our duty, and then material nature is obliged to provide. The demigods, material nature including the demigods, are obliged to give our needs. And so we don't have to worship Indra. "Oh, okay." Nanda says, "Oh, all right." Because Krishna is so charming. Imagine, if you can, little Krishna, he's, how old was he? 7 years old. 7-year-old boys. In general, they're, anyway, pretty cute, right? But a 7-year-old Krishna, imagine how cute he is. Imagine what a cute voice he must have when he's 7 years old. And he's saying, "Daddy, why are we doing this?" And he's probably smiling at the same time. And his eyes are, blinking. And Nanda Maharaj's heart just melts. He says, "Yes, whatever. Whatever you want." Okay, let's do something else. Let's worship Govardhan Hill. Haribo. So that's coming up very soon, right? Govardhan Puja, Govardhan Ki Jai. All right, so let's see. So it's interesting that he is making this point. He's actually affirming, or he's expressing his appreciation of what? That Mother Diti, although she had some intention to create some being who could kill Indra. Why did she want to kill Indra? Because he, together with Vishnu, were cooperating to annihilate the demons. That's what Indra does. When Indra needs to annihilate the demons, he calls on Vishnu to help. So perhaps Diti felt she wasn't going to be able to do anything to Vishnu, but she could certainly do something to Indra. And so when Kashyapa finds out about this, what does he do? He says, hold on, before you undertake this project, it would be good if you do some, in any case, whatever you want, but you should do some vow, some vṛṇīta. The Bhagavatam has a few descriptions of vows, chanting of mantras also in Canto 6, Chapter 8, there's the Narayana Kavachna, which is chanting for self-protection. So Kashyapa kind of tricks her, doesn't he? That you should do this particular practice, which is actually worship of the Lord. It's meditation on Lord Vishnu, and it's worship of the Lord. And of course, the whole lesson here is that by doing devotional service, one is protected by the Lord. So where do we hear about that principle? Where is that principle particularly highlighted in our philosophy? That Krishna protects his devotee. Krishna protects one who does devotional service. Any of the gents? Yes.
Declares only that's one who against my service. Now patience.
Okay, yes, in Bhagavad Gita, Kaunteya pradijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Actually, he tells Arjuna, you declare it, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the reason he has Arjuna declare it is he says, no one will believe me. What? No one will believe Krishna? No, because Krishna has a bad reputation for doing things other than what he says he's going to do. And why is that? Because he's from Mathura, and the people of Mathura are known for being like this. Krishna says something like that. Yes, another context is in the process of Sharanagati. So I'm sure you're familiar. There's a six-fold process. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya marjanam. Then you know what comes next. Rakshishyatiti vishvasa. So doing what is favorable for devotional service, avoiding what's unfavorable for devotional service, pratikulyasya. And then rakshishyati iti vishvasa. Rakshishyati iti. In Sanskrit, when there's anything and then iti, the iti is the Sanskrit way of making quotation marks. In our languages, we would put quotation marks. So rakshishyati, what does that mean? It means he will protect. Why is it in quotation marks? Vishvasa. Having the conviction, Vishvasa, that he will protect. That is considered the core of Sharanagati. That having the conviction, the Lord will protect me. Rakshishati Vishvasa Bhoktritve Varanam Tata ātma-nikṣepa garpanye shatvidha sharanagati. What's interesting, sort of a footnote to this, is Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a whole series of songs, the collection which he calls Sharanagati. It's all about these 6 activities. And one thing I find interesting about his collection is that he starts at the end from the Sanskrit verse. Atma-nikṣepa karpanya. Karpanya means humility. Atma-nikṣepa means atma-nivedana, offering oneself. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur starts with humility. And he has several songs about humility. Dainya, he calls it. And it comes from the word dina, which means the feeling or the sense or the condition of being very fallen or wretched. You know this word wretched? Wretched. Yes, but it doesn't have a moral connotation to it necessarily. It's not that one is bad, but just one is in a very lowly condition. One's suffering a lot, and one is really, we say in English, down and out. You know that expression? Down and out. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur begins with humility, and by that he's implying this is the starting point, the foundation of surrender to the Lord. And of course, surrender, that's what we always hear about, right? This is what we're supposed to be doing, surrendering to Krishna. So, I want to read for you a translation of a part, I don't think it's all, of Ramanujacharya's commentary on the famous book, the same famous verse of Bhagavad Gita, 1866, which goes, very good. So, find that first. Yes, here we go. Arjuna, Ramanujacharya says, was dejected. You know what dejected means? We usually say frustrated. How do you say frustrated in Danish? Frustrated.
Nedtrykt. It means like that you're like
Really?
pushed down.
How do you spell this?
Nedtrykt.
Throat. Okay. He was like that. That's what Ramanuja says. Arjuna was dejected, seeing that bhakti yoga can be practiced successfully only by a person who is free from all sins, and to whom Bhagavan is inexpressibly dear. Seeing further that the sins which are inimical, which are against starting bhakti yoga, are infinite, and the dharmas, the obligations, which are in the form of prayaschita. You know this word, prayaschita? Yeah, atonement. For those sins, to be done in a limited time, do not help in overcoming the sins, and that he was therefore unworthy of starting bhakti yoga. Okay, so he's starting out this picture of Arjuna. He's really unhappy because he's thinking, well, I can't even start bhakti yoga because there's so many sins, unlimited sins, and I can't, in this life, I can't do all the prayaschita that would be necessary to get rid of this. Then the Lord said, and he quotes the verse, abandoning all dharmas, take refuge in me alone, unquote, thus driving away Arjuna's sorrow. And then continuing the quote, quoting Krishna. He's expanding how Krishna is speaking. There are sins hoarded up, means piled up from beginningless time of various types, endless, which are obstacles to your undertaking bhakti yoga. There are prayaschita rites for each of these actions, such as, and then he gives a long list, specific prayaschita. There's one called krishra. Krishra means extremely difficult. Chandrayana, etc., etc., Agnishtoma, etc. Various eternal, which are difficult to do for one such as you, who has little time. Therefore, renouncing all these dharmas, in order to succeed in beginning bhakti yoga, take refuge in me alone. I, who am supremely compassionate, the refuge of the entire world, impervious to distinctions, I make no distinctions. The ocean of compassion for those who seek me, I will free you from all those sins which have been spoken of, which are obstacles to beginning that bhakti toward the essential nature. Do not grieve. So, I think the general point here is that Ramanuja is saying it's not that Krishna is just saying kind of, giving instruction, give up all your dharmas and surrender unto me, etc. Rather, he's pleading. He's pleading with Arjuna. He's opening his heart and he's saying, please do this. This is your opportunity and you can do it. You have the choice to do it. You have actually, where I got this translation from is a scholar who's analyzing how different Indian philosophers have discussed free will, and she's making the point that it's understood by the Vaishnavas that Krishna always holds as a fixed principle the giving of free will to us. So we always have a choice. And the choice is not just, once a few years ago we decided to become Hare Krishna. The choice is every day. It's an everyday decision that we have to make. Well, lots of things we can say about each of these verses, but time passes. I was thinking to share with you, if you like, a little of what I do. One thing I do is travel, and like all of us, I try to chant Hare Krishna, but I also do various things related with the so-called academic world. We have a center in Oxford called the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, which has been going now since 1999. And we've reached a situation where we're now officially recognized by the University of Oxford as what they call a recognized independent center of Oxford University. So that connects us with them, and at the same time we're independent. It's quite a prestigious kind of situation to be in. And Shanagarishi Prabhu is active as the director of that center, and he's facilitated many persons, including several devotees, to get higher degrees, higher meaning master's degrees and doctorate degrees, and other ways of facilitating. One of which is also the writing, the publishing of literature, of books. So, for example, this one. I did my doctoral research on the subject of our own tradition, Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition of Murti Seva. And then after finishing that, I did a bit of revision, not too much, and then was able to publish the book with an academic publisher, which is publishing a whole series of books from our center. We have several, they've done, I think, at least 15 or 20 titles now in what they call Hindu Studies series. So this is called Attending Krishna's Image, Chaitanya Vaishnava Murti Seva as Devotional Truth. It's kind of a mouthful of a subtitle, but what I'm doing essentially in the book is focusing on two temples One is the Radha-Raman temple in Vrindavan, which has been going for over 4 centuries, worshipping Radha-Raman. I spent 4 months living next to the temple and attending their various functions and meeting some of their priests, the Goswamis, and having some conversations with them. And the other temple is Bhaktivedanta Manor outside of London. And what I'm doing in this book is making a kind of comparison of the two. And for that purpose, doing a bit of, you might say, intellectual gymnastics. That's where the term devotional truth comes from. So this book recently came out in paperback. They were just having it in hardbound and selling it for a king's ransom, we say. In other words, too much money for ordinary mortals. But now it's available. Actually, we have printed it. We means the BBT. They gave us back the rights to print it in paperback. And it's in a slightly different format than this. And it's affordable. Human beings can afford it, so we're trying to promote that. And something else I've been working on for some years now. It takes time to do these things. This is called The Bhagavata Purana, Sacred Text and Living Tradition. Again, this is published by an academic publisher in New York, Columbia University Press. Myself, together with another devotee, Radhika Raman Prabhu in America, who's also a scholar, have simply functioned as editors for this book, which is a collection of 12 essays, articles by 12 scholars, well, 11 plus me. I wrote one of the, about different themes with the idea to introduce the Bhagavatam to what we call an educated reading audience. People who say, okay, what is this Bhagavata Purana? We might, of course, give them Srila Prabhupada's books, but many of them will say, well, okay, but this is Canto 6. Where's Canto 1, first of all? Well, I don't know if I can read all of that. And so we have managed to put this together, discussing different themes of the Bhagavatam. But this book is meant as a counterpart, a companion, we call it, to another book which we are just finishing now, and that is a very abridged, 1-volume edition of the Bhagavatam. What we've done is we're taking selections from each of the 12 cantos. Usually it's between 2 and 5 chapters from each canto. And then we're tying everything together with explanatory paragraphs. And our translation is a retranslation. Because it's an academic work, we could not say, well, we'll just take Prabhupada's translation. They would not go with that, so we've been doing our own translation. So that's coming out, Krishna willing, I would say by the end of next year. We hope to have the manuscript in at the end of this year, so in about 8-10 weeks.
What is your experience to work with these scholars? Because like you said before, we read that Indra there's another version of Vritasura, like that. Of course you are taking from Bhagavatam, you're reading from Bhagavatam, but which Bhagavatam and how? Yeah.
That's a big topic. Basically, what I find is that scholars are for the most part, they're not out to bash religion. They're usually the kinds of scholars we deal with are spending decades studying things that we study, so they're somehow or other attracted to them. And it's that attraction which I think is appreciable. And we find also that they will sometimes have insights that we might not have, which are not necessarily against devotional service. On the other side, yes, they're not devotees, and we are warned, milk touched by the lips of a servant, etc. Most of the articles in here are by devotee scholars. The others are, without any exception, I would say, specifically very sympathetic. All except one of the scholars we know personally. The one scholar neither of us met personally. There's no trace within her article of anything negative or critical, because that's just not her topic. She's writing about contemporary Bharatanatyam dance as inspired by the Bhagavatam. So, yeah, it's a balancing act, I would say. And in a sense, devotional scholarship is a kind of learning how to walk the tightrope and keep one's balance. Yeah. And then just another sample of the sort of thing that I have done. I did not do this book, but within this book, the Bloomsbury Companion to Hindu Studies, which was previously published by Continuum, it's really, in so many ways, a really excellent introduction to, this is not an introduction to Hinduism, that's a different kind of book. This is an introduction to scholarship on Hinduism. And so I was invited to write a short article, it's maybe 10 pages, on iconology, the study of images, and worship. Because, somehow it became a little bit known in very small circles for this book. So they said, okay, well, you know about this stuff, you could write it. Yeah. So then this kind of thing goes out. Also recently there's been a published 5-volume encyclopedia of Hinduism by another academic publisher called Brill, which is a very respected publisher of Indological things from Holland. And I was asked first to write an article on puja and darshana. And they gave me the maximum length for an article, which is 10,000 words, which is quite a substantial article. And when I finished it and I sent it to them, they said, can you please send it, do you have any images, photos that you could send, we could include in the encyclopedia. They'll be in black and white, but if you have anything. So we sent 3, 4, 5 photos, and one of the photos, well, we sent them all in color. One of the photos was a very, very well done photograph of Sri Gaur-Nitai, the deities in the Budapest temple. They're marble deities. They liked that photo so much that they printed it in full color in their encyclopedia. Then they asked me to write an article on Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Gaudiya Vaishnavism? 10,000 words. What? Explain everything about Gaudiya? Yes. Okay. Good luck. So I spent some time with that. And then they wanted a 5,000-word essay on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I also had opportunity. And 2 or 3 other devotees have done other articles for that encyclopedia. Garuda Prabhu, I believe, did one on Leela. I think also on Rasa. Yeah. Okay, finally, the more devotional, and this one only edited by me. This is called Guṇa-sparśaṁ, Devotees' Creative Reflections on Divine Pastimes. This is, it's becoming a bit of a series. It started 3-4 years ago. We were having some seminars, some discussion with devotees about Krishna Lila, and one day I said, we should write something, let's be a little creative. And devotees kind of looked at me, what do you mean? So then I wrote something for the next day, and what I wrote was, I thought, well, we have the description of Rukmini before she meets Krishna. She hears about Krishna, and what does she do? She sends a message to Krishna saying, "You're my man." And how does she send the message? Yes, she tells the Brahmana to bring this message. Incidentally, there's no indication that she wrote the message. She told the Brahmana. Anyway, so I was thinking, well, what would that Brahmana be thinking as he's going to Dwarka? He's going to meet Krishna. And so I wrote something. It's my imagination. It's my speculation, if you like. But I like to think of it as filling out a picture, just like we have paintings. Srila Prabhupada encouraged very much devotees paint the pastimes of the Lord for illustration for his books. And to do these illustrations, these paintings, requires a certain amount of imagination. So what I've been doing is encouraging devotees to elaborate on the pastimes as we read them, without, becoming speculative in the sense of, I generally encourage them to make it the voice of a minor character, rather than Krishna or Rama or Lord Chaitanya, and have them help us to appreciate something more about Krishna's pastimes. We did one volume on Krishna Smarna, and then one on Rama Smarna, and now we just brought out Gaura Smarna. So it's several devotees who have expressed their inspirations from reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavatam, and so on. Hare Krishna. So that's what I do. Questions, comments, complaints, or additions? Yes?
Maybe we had a discussion because Diti is here and made this determination to have a son that would be able to kill Indra.
Yes.
So, but we hear later on that somehow Indra, he came to serve her, and she allowed him to serve her.
Mm-hmm.
So we found it quite astounding as he was carrying this desire to beget the son, to kill him, the very same person, and yet she allows him to serve her. So how is it?
But still it was said that he came in disguise, and first later on she she found out his purpose.
We had a discussion whether if he was actually disguised physically, like she didn't understand who he was.
Right.
But he just disguised his motive, like a hunter, he puts on a black skin of a deer.
Right.
This is taken literally that he physically disguised himself, but just he hid his intention from her. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam.
The word disguise is there. If I knew the verse where that's mentioned specifically.
58, I think.
58?
Or 48, something like that.
I think it's before 52, 53.
Oh, it mentions being outwardly friendly. Okay. O king, who are respectful to everyone, Indra understood Diti's purpose, and thus he contrived to fulfill his own interest, following the logic that self-preservation is the first law of nature. He wanted to break Diti's promise, thus he engaged himself in the service of Diti, his aunt, who was residing in an ashram. Okay, nothing about disguise there.
It comes a few verses after that, like 5 verses after.
Indra served his aunt daily by bringing flowers, fruits, roots, and wood from the forest. He also brought Krishna, leaves, sprouts, and water exactly at the proper time. O King Parikshit, as the hunter of the deer becomes like a deer by covering his body with deerskin and serving deer, so Indra, although at heart the enemy of the sons of Diti, became outwardly friendly and served Diti in a faithful way. Indra's purpose was to cheat Diti as soon as he could find some fault in the way she discharged the vows of ritualistic ceremony. However, he wanted to be undetected, and therefore he served her very carefully. Is this the passage you mean?
Yeah, we had a discussion whether it should be understood that he physically disguised, because he couldn't tell who he was, or is it just he disguised his motive?
The point was just that his motivation, and if she served him, because the point was that in one class we heard that we were told that Diti was very broad-minded, that even though she had an enemy serving her, she was still allowing him to serve her. But I said that I pointed out that she didn't know his motivation, because that was first revealed later on.
Right. Yeah. All it says here is in the Sanskrit, chihma, deceitful, mrigaha eva, mrigakriti, like a hunter in the form of a deer. So it's ambiguous because it's an analogy. It's not saying he actually dressed himself in a way. And my initial thought is because Diti is Indra's aunt, that she would recognize him because they're relations. It's almost like the mother. How can a son disguise himself so as not to be recognized by his own mother? So an aunt is almost the mother. There's one exception that's described in Chaitanya-Bhagavatam, that the devotees, together with Lord Chaitanya, one day decided to put on a drama. And Lord Chaitanya played the part of Lakshmi. And from the description, it doesn't seem like there's much of a story to the drama. It just seems like they're kind of all appearing in different characters. Nothing much happens. But Lord Chaitanya appears as Lakshmi, and it's said there that even his own mother, Sachimata, could not recognize him. He was so well disguised. But otherwise, I would wondered if Niti would not be able to recognize, it seems the emphasis is on hidden motivation.
But even though that she knew that, could see that it is Indra, the nephew, serving her.
That's
but,
pretty amazing.
Yes, this we understand that she could see that. But it is said there that his motivation, later on she is asking him, Indra, what was your motivation? Please disclose it to me and do not speak lies.
Oh.
That she asked just after 2-3 verses, and Indra,
okay.
he reveals his motivation, and then she also tells him that, after a few verses, and he discloses his motivation for her.
Right. Amazing, huh? This is one of those points in the Bhagavatam where you kind of just sort of say, wow, amazing. It reminds me of kind of the ethics of the battlefield, the classical battlefield, where the sworn enemies will nonetheless even entertain each other in the evening time. Okay, next day, now we're going to kill you, right? So it could be something in that direction. Incidentally, it's a detail, and I don't remember, I think it's one of the commentators explains, what is the ritual fault that Indra finds that Diti has committed?
She did not wash her feet and mouth.
Okay, so that is
One day.
mentioned. Yeah, one day she didn't wash her feet and mouth. Yeah. After eating or before going to bed or something. Yeah. Yes.
So we just, I personally just took it as a high culture, as you say, as a battlefield. This is a significance as a high, even though you may have some idea plan in your head to have somebody killed, still you can observe a higher culture. When the situation approaches, you will observe, you will honor that higher culture, receiving somebody friendly in your house.
Yeah.
It seemed that was what was going on.
Yeah, and all of this seems to tie into the whole notion of heroism. To be a hero, and a major concern is to have a heroic death. The Bhagavatam is full of discussions of different kinds of death, and there's yogic heroic, you can say, and there's devotional heroic death. But in any case, it's got to be heroic. Bhishma is a heroic death in the Mahabharata, but in the Bhagavatam we understand it's a heroic devotional death. And so, same with Ritrasura. He wants a heroic death, so he said, come on, kill him, you can do it. So that seems to be the idea. Yes.
I took it also, and I read some places that one should not be duplicious. Like that word was also used in some of the verses that when we do devotional service, we should not have hidden motivations. What we
do. We can also understand the way that they are so absorbed in understanding that everybody is a spirit soul. Even they act as enemies, they don't take too serious.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I'm going to kill you now. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to make it difficult for you to kill me. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a different culture.
May I ask you, you mentioned earlier in the lecture a reference to the Rig Veda. Brita is described as holding back the waters from Indra. I read
from the whole world.
From one place, I saw one academic, and he said that maybe this can actually refer to the Ice Age. Because I tried to look where is the Ice Age described in the Vedas. Is there actually our take that there has been an Ice Age?
I must say, I haven't come across that, but that's in the academic world we say, well, that's not really my field of research. So I can't really say something about that. But it's an interesting question.
Relate question, how we can hold back on the water technique?
How indeed. That is also wonderful. How is he holding back the waters? It's a wonderful thing. He must have been very powerful.
Like Vayu, he took our air when he was angry, and then nobody could breathe because it became wood.
Yeah.
How is doing?
How is that possible? When you can figure it out, then you can do it. And then you'll be very powerful. And then everyone will be coming to you and praying, please, give us back our air. We need to breathe. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki,